Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
You'll be well aware there's been a lot of criticism of yourself, of the board, generally of the club since the Champions League exit. One of the main criticisms is a lack of investment in the squad. Is that a fair one?
It's not. I mean, I think the first thing I would say is that we're all sharing the pain. You know, it was a very painful night, the real disappointment, and but we have to move on. You know, I think we as the club have got to keep the head and be calm and move on. There has been a lot of criticism. I think most of it is not fair and it's pretty unreasonable. And I think there's maybe a lack of understanding at the moment around in terms of Scottish football in general and where it is in Celtic as a club. And our commitment as a board has been that every penny that comes into the club will be reinvested back in the club. And I don't think we can be clearer. That is a fact. That is what we will do, and that is our commitment. So I don't think you can commit more than everything, or give more than everything, and that will continue to happen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening, folks, and welcome. A warm welcome. I hope everyone's feeling okay to impromptu E-Tim's podcast in light of the weirdest week ever in the life of Celtic FC. That's what I'm calling it. I am glad to say at the moment I have been joined by our resident tactician, the man with the sweary tongue, as a lot of people have been missing you from the last podcast, Hector Bandido. Hector has actually called himself God Bless the Board on this current recording. Do you want to be called that from now on, or will we just stick with Hector?
Anything you want, Desi. You're the host, but profanity is no longer my thing, Desi. It's the new me.
You shall disappoint a lot of folk, because that was the main feedback from the last podcast. People, thank you for your feedback, folks. We always enjoy it. Thanks for the subscriptions and the likes, as always. But a lot of the feedback last time, Hector, was the profanity count was very low with Hector not being there.
And what does that say about our audience, Desi? What does that tell you?
Bear with me, Hector, bear with me. Looking forward to his return. You know what I mean? So obviously we have an audience, and our audience know what they like, and we know what they like. So let's see. The profanity will go wherever the profanity goes, because we do have a few hot subjects, like say, to discuss tonight. So along with Hector, at the moment, I'm glad to also say we are joined by someone who may have a more positive outlook in life, because there's some bright spots in her life at the moment. Karen, happy Celtic lass. Good evening, Karen.
Hello there. How we doing?
Thank you for joining. Thank you. As I said, you are here as always as a great Celtic fan, but also you do have some positivity, which we'll come to later. Let's leave the sunshine for after the rain, as Zoe once sang, right?
Aye, and I'm going to power up for this positivity. I remember the last podcast. I stuck by poor wee Elena, and this one was sticking the knife into her.
No, I stuck by Elena. I said she deserves another year.
I think that is true. But we'll come to the.
I said she deserves another year.
Oh, you did. We'll come to the good news. The good news factor for the women's team, and also a few other aspects from Karen a little bit later on. But let's concentrate. Right. So this is currently the 2nd of September at 1941. We're recording this, right? As I said, I believe this may be the weirdest week ever for Celtic Football Club, and certainly in my lifetime. Hector, you and I are roughly the same age. Karen, you're probably a bit younger than us, to be honest. But it's Hector. Can you remember? If we get into the details, can you remember a week like this in your life? Like this time last week, we were all waiting to try and score a goal in Kazakhstan.
Well, we'd just gone out, I think, at this time last week. It was the early kickoff. We're all going off our nuts, weren't we? But you did mention 1941 there, Desi, didn't you? I think that's what the board think is, and we're trying to buy a player.
Just left school, that's correct, yes.
I think they still think it's 1941, the prices they offer as their first bid to teams, you know. Let's offer them threepence halfpenny. There you go, here's 1941 for you, right? But, yeah, I think this time last week, we were coming to terms with... And the weird thing about this time last week, This isn't, hindsight and afterthought and everything else. We and probably every Celtic fan I know via family, friends, work colleagues online, you build online kind of friendships, is we were saying the same thing all summer. Every one of us, we needed to strengthen the team. Needed to strengthen the team. The managers, I think every Friday the media conference is there and it's on YouTube, so you get to watch the full media conference. It's not just the headline that BBC Sport puts out or STV News. You get the full context. So he's asked the question about transfers, and he plays the game 95% of the time. But as week after week's gone by, and he's pretty much saying the same thing. I'm quite happy who I've brought in so far, but everyone can see we need to strengthen higher up the pitch. We've lost some really good players in reference to Kyogo and Kuhn, a lot of goals, a lot of pace, a lot of movement, creativity. Jota obviously been out. These things happen in football. But he's been reiterating the same thing and playing the game to a large degree. Once or twice you get a bit pissed, which can happen when you get idiots asking you questions all the time. But in essence, he was saying what we were all saying, strengthen the team, prepare, something we never ever fucking do. Did I just swear there? Right? And lo and behold, lo and behold, when it came to the game against the lowest ranked team in the history of football, right, we were dreadfully bad. So the manager, without a doubt, there's more than one thing can be wrong here. The manager deserves criticism for over 2 legs, us being so poor. But at the same time, the lack of preparation, and it happens year after year after year, was off the charts this year. So stepping back this time last week, we were gutted. We're also, let's be honest, angry at so many aspects to last week and the failure this summer.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I am glad, folks, to say, as usual, 5 to 10 minutes late. He likes to make an entrance. Monty C. Burns has joined us. Good evening, Monty.
Good evening, Desi. Good evening, folks.
Okay, I am very interested to find out later on what the C means tonight in Monty C. Burns. We usually have a small competition. So we'll come to that, right? So I'm going to come to Carl next, right? So I started the intro. I changed the intro. Normally we have the Champions League music, but I changed the intro this week to include Karen, the infamous, now, and I would say it's now infamous, Peter Lawwell conversation from 11 years ago, where he says, our commitment as a board is every penny that comes in will be reinvested back into the club. Do you think we just misinterpreted that 11 years ago as meaning the team when he actually meant the club? Hector knows how those directors loved their jollies in Madrid, markets, etc. Do you think that's what he was actually alluding to back then? We just misinterpreted it?
100%. It's all down to, heated driveways are us. Yeah, I just can't think about a more mean-spirited bunch of people in all my life, as they just won't spend and give us a little bit of joy. Every year it's the same thing. The last week they don't help us in any way. They don't help the manager. They don't give the support something to look forward to. Last summer was probably the best it had been, because Rodgers actually got them away and had a really brilliant summer, properly prepared, properly came into the league season flying. The football they were playing was great. And he said that a lot of that was because he had the best prep that he'd had. Even then, he didn't get Engels and Ida until the end of the window. But he did have enough time to get Kuhn and all that up running. So that just shows you, if you prepare, it's good, and you come into the season in good frame of mind. But you never had that this season. There was never that positivity, because it had all gone from January, because we never replaced Kyogo and we all knew what we needed, and there was no sign of it happening.
Yeah. So I think I've just been smiling every time I saw that. Uncanny you mentioned heated driveways, because my favourite tweet over the last 48 hours, my favourite joke tweet was from @notoriousbag_ Sean on Twitter, who wrote, the Celtic crest, a club will be formed for the creation and maintenance of heated driveways. This sums it up. Right, so Monty, I'm going to come to you, right? That was my favourite joke, but I think Hector will agree. one of the greatest Celtic tweets ever, and I'm going to read it word for word here, Monty. It came in August the 6th, and it was from a guy called Jim Monaghan, and he wrote, two things I know for an absolute fact. No rumour, no guessing, not gossip. 1. Michael Nicholson lives and breathes Celtic and works 24 hours a day during transfer windows. 2. He is as hard as nails and thick-skinned and will not panic or be influenced by fans on Twitter or the press. Monty, you are your financial guru. Is that the sort of CEO you've always wanted in your club?
Oh fuck. Sorry, it took me 2 words to curse.
Monty, if you want to get that tattooed on your person, you are free. I'm willing to give it up. You can get it first. Instead of Celtic fans getting a huddle, I think fans of the board should get that on their back. I've seen people with a full huddle on their back. I reckon we should look out for a board lover to get that on their back. On you go, Monty.
It's actually really hard to process just how, I think, embarrassing the last 24 hours have been for our CEO, and I don't even know what McKay's title is, just that other fucking idiot. These guys are clearly out of their depth. I mean, I said it in the last podcast, the notion that every decision goes to that other mustachioed fuckwit for sign off when he's playing golf in Sandy Lane. It's just not true. He doesn't sign everything off. These guys are given parameters and they have to do their job. It's quite clear that they can't. There is no other explanation. You were asking me what the C would stand for in Monty, and I went everywhere from confused to conflating to you name it, because if this isn't incompetence, Desi, I actually I can't see it. I'm in the Occam's razor space that the most obvious answer is the answer. And these guys are just out of their depth. They're incompetent and they need cleared out. For 850 grand a year for a CEO who's essentially a solicitor who's a company secretary, and for 500 grand a year for that other idiot McKay who supposedly runs contracts, these guys, they need cleared out, Desi. There's no justification, and there can't be. And the irony, I'm saying that as we spent 14.5 million, and that's what they're going to hide behind. They're going to hide behind the fact that we kept all our best players. We probably rejected some, we're into the moonbeams fucking world now. Well, I guarantee you they'll tell you we restricted some very strong interest in our best players. They're going to play all the strokes, guys, but there is no excuse and there's no justification in any other business.
Monty, can I ask you though? Sorry, can I ask you, right? Because I'll forget because I'm old, right? You said within their parameters, and this is a bit that interests me. You're right. The wages that Nicholson's on, and that excludes the big elephant rooms, the bonuses that they all get, or the hidden bonuses. And what I mean by that is they can be deferred and picked up at a point in time in the future, so it doesn't show this year to make the perception worse than what it is. But you said parameters, and that's the bit that interests me, because there's been a recurring theme here where we lowball, and this isn't us making things up. This is other clubs we've made offers to publicly saying this. So the evidence is not some irate fans who hate the board making things up. This is other clubs telling us what's happening, and we're making lowball offers of 1.5, sitting a week 1.75. It's like the John McGinn thing again from whenever it was 7 years ago. But the question is, the parameters is a bit that intrigues me. We're all trying our best to figure this out, but there's got to be something in these parameters where why are they lowballing every single time for players they know are probably worth in the region of €5 million, £5 million. There's got to be something in that.
It has to be, Hector. In my experience, a board will set parameters for its executive team to then go and literally execute, hence executive team. And the parameters that you're allowed to operate in have a certain threshold that then needs to come to the board for approval. And this is why I'm saying that none of this fits. This is incompetence, unless, and this is the big one that we won't know because no one will probably ever tell us, unless they're incentivized, their bonus structure on an individual level and on a team level is incentivized to be a reduction in the amount of committed capital or the committed OPEX for the year. So think about this, Hector. I'm going to give you a budget of 20 million, and then you've got to go and do your job. But if you do your job and we achieve all these objectives and you've only spent 18 million, 20% of that's yours. 20% of the other 2 million is yours. That's a normal, typical bonus structure for executives in a management team. In that world, maybe you'll be cute, but we are operating at such an amateur level. What we effectively did was we played a game of poker, showed our fucking hand to everybody, and then tried to act a big lad at the last end. And we've utterly humiliated ourselves, and this is a recurrent theme. That's a parameter that could explain, but does not justify their behaviour. And we've reputational damage. We have impact, significant impact on opportunity cost in terms of Champions League money that we never got because we never invested early enough. And now we've also got revenue impacting things that will follow because you have a support base that's up in arms. So either the board parameters to the executive team are wrong, or the executive team are incapable of operating inside those parameters. And those parameters maybe you're allowed to spend 10 million, but if it's above 10 million, you need to bring it to the board for approval. But you wouldn't do that after you've done a deal for 10 million and get the board together. You do that once before you do it.
Sorry, Daisy, can I ask a question? I'll dare I say £3 million.
But this is the thing.
There's this £3 million figure floating about here. Is this a parameter they've went, anything above 3 million or £4 million, you've got to come to us?
But come to us is a planning. Sorry, Desi, just to round out that last point, because I know I'm talking too much on this and we're only starting. You do that in advance of your deal. Like we talk about negotiation strategies and you talk about BATNA as your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, all that bullshit. You know what you've got. You know how much you're prepared to pay. And at the point at which it goes past that, you walk away. You don't keep going back looking for another 500 grand, Hector. And that's what I'm saying to you. I think these guys are utterly, think about it. It's a solicitor and an accountant. How much creativity lives in those two fucking brains? With all due respect to solicitors and accountants.
Right.
These guys are not deal makers. They're just simply not.
Right. So I think that if I start this, we'll be here all night, but we'll move on to something else and we'll come back to this, right? Because
I'll shut up, I promise.
And again, this is we talked about this before in the last podcast, the whole communication thing. The big problem is we have no idea. Nobody has any idea because we have no idea of the structure. We have no idea that our plan is always to get players with under 5 million, saying turn them over for 100% profit. We don't know because it's so bad and it's so scattergun and it's just terrible that we're left clutching at straws, right? But we'll come back to it because there's a million conspiracy theories, there's a million possibilities of why this is. We've all got different ones, so let's try and come back to them a little bit later, right? But let's just review again. Let's just stick to this last week, right? So where we are. But Hector, I'm going to just pick up on something you said there, which I hadn't thought of before, right? And that was Brendan's. We need change up top, right? Up front, right? I was just thinking as you said that there. Do you think that was maybe a wee bit of coded language for Brendan saying we need change up top? No, that way you need quality. We need quality up top, and nobody actually picked it up until I just kind of went, wait a minute. I've just came away from watching Glass Onion. Who done it again? So I'm in pure murder mystery mode.
You're in conspiracy mode, aren't you?
I'm in pure Columbo mode. Right. And again, we've still got that whole. I made a joke. about yesterday how the board will send out a note, basically between the lines saying, "Fuck off, scum! You don't understand modern football negotiations." Basically, but again, we don't know how these things work. But we'll come back to that in a second. I'll stick with you, Hector. Right, this hard facts at the moment. Tactician wise, we've lost Adam Ida away. Right, so Ida. let's even go back to Sunday. That whole either is Swansea, either back for Swansea, either turn your car around, sit in the travel lodge, come back up the road. No, park your car at Southwaite Services. You might be down the road. Suddenly you wasn't on the bench. Suddenly either was got. Brendan says no one's going out with anybody coming in. At least 2 people will be replacing either. Doesn't happen. Either joins Swansea. It's a total disaster, right? Swansea apparently had their marketing ready for 36 hours waiting for us to sign off, right? But the main thing of that disaster, Hector, right? You can feel free to talk about that. But the main thing was either goes, that's another 20 goals out your team. We've lost 73 goals now, and that's not even including Matt O'Reilly. If we just look at Kuhn, Kyogo, and Ida, the guys up the front line, 73 goals. What team can survive that sort of impact?
So that's the point I was making earlier on, right? If we put the manager to one side, and we'll come back to him no doubt quite a few times, but just purely from that perspective there, the amount of goals removed from the team is frightening, right? My other point was, yeah, Ida, as we know, I think the issue with Ida was the £9 million price tag, which again wasn't Ida's fault. Again, I would put the blame on the board for that, because we got him on loan for 6 months, and usually you put a clause to buy in. And if we didn't, why not close a deal early last summer? You might have got him for 4.5 or 5 million, but Cairns' point earlier on, they left it to the last minute, and only just going, right, we know you're desperate for him, name your price. Possibly a bit like the guy they signed, the guy they signed for the Swedish team yesterday. They probably paid over the odds because of the last minute panic there.
Yeah.
But the thing we done was, we've discussed this many times, sometimes the jersey's just too big for some players. And people might go, what you talking about, score 20 goals. But we all know, if you watch games week in, week out, particularly the last few months of last season and the very early part of the season, confidence head was gone. He was just really struggling. But he still contributed 20 goals last season, and his first 5-6 months, without him, we've not won the league, and possibly not won the Scottish Cup without him the year before. So losing that, but the big thing for me is, as well as the goals, is with Kyogo and with Kuhn, again back to Car's point about we came off the pre-season in the States last summer, they were flagging. See the lack of pace and movement and interaction between the front three. And it's not just those three playing off each other. It's the relationships they've got with the fullback and the number 8s. Without that three, the whole team seems to have come to a sudden fucking shuddering halt. Because you've got people looking up, and you've got Yang, and let's be honest, we would struggle to trap a bag of cement on one side of the pitch, right? You've got Jamesy, God bless him, who James has got a place in the squad at 34, but ideally to see a game out in the last 15, 20 minutes, if you just want to kind of see a game out. But we're now looking at guys, and they're Maeda trying to play 3 roles, fucking left wing, right wing, striker, as well as running back to defence and midfield, and at the same time missing some sitters. So you've got this complete clusterfuck where the front three for me set the tone for Celtic since Ange. They set the tone. They set the press, they set the work rate, the first line of defence high up the pitch. Rodgers, his first few months struggled with that, but then he adapted his first season. Last season continued that. But that's all been removed now. We've got nothing up front. And for me, that's the biggest problem. We're completely fucked until we get that fixed. And I'm hoping these 2 wingers were just brought in at the last minute, a couple of weeks to work with them, they'll get into the groove pretty quickly with Maeda. If no, I think we're in for a long season, folks. I hate to say it.
Can I add something to that, Victor?
Sure.
I think a key bit as well is Greg Taylor's role. I think Maeda and KT are getting in each other's way, or whoever's playing down the left is getting it. They've not got that relationship right yet, and that's that's been a big factor for me. I know that GT had all these critics and all that, but it was a critical part of the role of that team, and the relationship between midfield, getting into attack, and just giving us that extra number up top, and we're really missing that. We're missing that.
And then the other side, sorry, Cam, that's a great point, sorry, Monty, but then the other side, be Kuhn going. Him and Alistair Johnson was arguably the best I've seen as a full-back and winger in God knows how long, as in that working relationship. I know coming off the boil a wee bit, particularly towards the end of his time. His head was elsewhere. But Johnston's now out injured. Kuhn's away. So you've got the whole right-hand side dynamic, which is completely gone as well. Sorry, Monty.
And I think it was just to add to what Karen was saying and what you'd started as well, Hector. This isn't a new problem. We've known about this. I think I mentioned in the last podcast and on our WhatsApp that the first Rogers team in the second era peaked in Munich. We were outstanding in Munich. That was us. That was our identity. And Kyogo had already gone by that stage, as one of the guys corrected me. So we knew we needed a centre forward. We knew we needed, like Kyogo again, dynamic pressing. That's the fit for that system. Then we lost the two flanks, as you point out. We lose Jota, we lose Kuhn, we sell Kuhn. The other tactical point around teams haven't worked out. If you stop Cal Mack, then all we are is the horseshoe of death and passing it backwards and sideways. And there's an element of that then that does fall to the coaching staff. Well, why haven't you tweaked it? Why haven't you changed it? But these are things that we've known about for the best part of a year. And as a football club, we've known that we've needed personnel for more than a year, you could argue. And we haven't even stood still. We have reversed at such a rapid rate of knots. And losing that dynamism at the top, as you point out, Hector, we've got two new wingers. Hopefully they are the start of the solution. But we're still -2, if not 3.
But back to Desi's
quality
question about Ida. I mean, if ever something just represented the complete clusterfuck of this transfer window, it was his whole setting this up about he was down in Swansea. Well, no, it's a fact he was there. He was due to go. Rogers went he was asked a question. It's on last Friday's. In fact, you get it on YouTube. You can watch it. He's asked that question. He goes, well, we can't let anyone go until we get another striker in. But it's not only that. It meant that Ida couldn't even be on the bench on Sunday at Ibrox. And people forget he scored 2 goals at Ibrox. He's got probably one of the best records of any player that's currently in the team at Ibrox. He wasn't available because his head was elsewhere. And likewise, we mentioned Ida. Yang. I had a laugh at Yang, but Yang for the last 20 minutes now and again, you can get a turn when the space opens up in the game. Look at how the club treated him the last 2 or 3 days.
And I was thinking, is it some sort of power play? Because it only ends one way anyway. All of this ends one way, which is that Rogers leaves. There is no other. You can play this forward 100 times. None of those guys on massive salaries are going to walk through doing something, ethical or honourable. The only output is that Rogers leaves.
So, Des, can I ask Desi a question then? So, Desi, you raised it. What was your? Let's go back to your Adam Ida point. What was what's your thoughts and take on it? I mean, you first mentioned the whole background to it, and out the blue, he's suddenly going to Swansea and he's down there, got a medical, etc. What's your take on it?
Just before I forget, Monty, let's not forget Brendan's history tends to show us sack the board chance result in sack the manager. You know what I mean? So that's I think that's the road we're all fearing we're going down. Yeah. So Hector, the reason I asked that question was I asked you the question first of all in respect to the whole tactician and goals. But people may not believe this, but I actually have notes prepared for these podcasts. I've got another 5 examples of total clusterfucks from this window, and I was going to basically give Karen a number, and I was going to. So the next one I've got is Yang. Right, so the next one I've got is Yang. Yang goes to Birmingham and complete a deal. It falls through, and everyone has no doubt heard that Nicholson won't answer his phone.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole story being leaked that Nicholson wouldn't answer the phone to Yang's agent because Birmingham are waiting to sign the deal. Birmingham say, fuck this, and they go and sign Paddy Roberts. And the thing that really got me about, why are we no fucking signing Paddy Roberts? Like that sort of idea. Like, why are we not in that world? I'm not saying Paddy Roberts is the greatest footballer ever, but he'd have certainly done a turn for us somewhere, surely. That idea. Ida was just, so Yang, I don't know if you saw the classic clip, Steve Bruce he's doing a press conference, and I don't know why he's so sheepish, but he's got his head down, and he's just going, hello, hello, hello. He's nodding to all the journalists. And I'm imagining, like, the joke this week was because of that Martinez for Aston Villa wouldn't he play because he thought he was going to Man United, and then Man United signed another keeper, so he had to go back into Villa and sign a new contract. He was blasé, he wasn't sheepish. But what about poor Yang? Having to walk back into the dressing room, knowing he's already been told, we don't want you, you can get the fuck as far as we're concerned, and then having to welcome him back and say, right, there's your boots, go and do a joke for us. How are you meant to be motivated whatsoever? Either what a way to treat an international player who loves your club, and as you say, Hector, scored 20 goals, done really well against the Huns, won a cup final for you, and we're treating people. I've just wrote disrespect on every one of the lines. Even Stephen Welsh. Can I go to Plymouth? Can I go to Plymouth? Yes, you can, but just wait a minute. You can't go to now. Plymouth turn around and go, oh, we've just went and signed somebody for Turkey. We don't need them anymore. That meant treating people with such disrespect. It's not Moneyball. This isn't in the movies. It's just utter shite. Honestly, and then you've got Tillio. The exact same thing happened to Tillio, Rapid Vienna, and then you've even then we got a wee bit of our own medicine with Dolberg basically saying, I might sign for yous. And now it turns out he's not even going to sign for Ajax. A total disaster. And it's just so amateurish. It's just, I actually feel my face going red here because it just makes you so angry how people can be so incompetent and so rude. So I'll hand that back to Karen. So Karen, that's what I was going to ask you. What do you think was the worst example of Celtic's disrespect in the window?
God, I think you've covered them all.
Sorry.
No, you're all right. It was a great rant. I really enjoyed it.
Can I ask you one, Karen?
Let's not forget Balak Sweater. We were trying to get him for 8 months.
But Karen, can I ask you one then, right?
Yeah.
Just Desi kind of raised the ones. Who's been disrespected the most? How about the Celtic supporters been disrespected the most?
Great point. Yeah, absolutely. But they've never really cared about us anyway. They've always disrespected us. I don't think that's a one-off. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, is there any example? I mean, sometimes you'll get something on Twitter, you'll see some club somewhere doing something really good for their fans. When was the last time Celtic actually did something good for their fans? I can't remember.
Yep. Exactly.
You know?
And then I seen somebody saying something about, maybe they'll give us a good European Europa League package or something. And I said, no, Celtic never removed the chance of making as much money as possible.
Yeah.
Even when they even used to give you like a discount code, it still meant you had to go and spend £40 in the superstore to get £50 worth. You're still handing hard cash over for any treats that Celtic were giving you. It's madness, right? So let's think even forward planning, right? Karen, I'll stick with you. Forward planning. Hector mentioned we've signed Sebastian Tunecti. We bid £2.5 million for this guy. We told him we think you're worth £2.5 million, and then end up paying £5.2 million for him at the last minute. And that was the same price. The same price we could have paid months ago for Jacob Broom, who was apparently our number 2 target after Balak-Wisha. Do we think there's any sense of planning whatsoever at Celtic Park?
No, and I'll tell you another thing that I've noticed about it. They're all left wingers.
Yep.
You know, there's no planning here for the right wing. That's just as weak. So, you know, no, there's no sense of planning. As you said earlier on, it's all about the low ball offer and seeing if they can get away with it. And all they do is end up embarrassing themselves. As I said, that even that guy, Tuneke, that they've just signed, Sebastian, I'm going to call him, even Seb, you know, they told him at the start.
Did he say Sibo?
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet.
Give him time. Aye.
Give him 2 games.
Yeah. But again, Hammarby were quite, same as Ron, Hammarby were quite open. £5 million. We're not talking otherwise. But they still eked it up 5 pence every time. So no, there's no planning. We've discussed it. It's just a low ball offer. That is their plan. That is their one strategy, and they don't veer from it.
And there's something That's what I'm saying, Karen, and what I mentioned earlier. There's something fundamentally amateurish about that.
Yeah.
Brian, Rogers made the point about the guy, Forbes, playing for Bruges. And I know we talked about Bruges a lot in the last press con or not press
Brugge,
conference, last
Brugge.
podcast.
Brugge.
Brugge, thank you.
Go on, move with the
Um,
times.
Brugge, yeah. Forbes is a €6 million winger that was signed in June. We went through the Brugge ins and outs on the last podcast, I think, or at least we debated it internally. That's forward planning on the
Yeah.
basis that we're going to sell the guy in that position for 15, 20 million plus, and he's the next replacement.
Mm-hmm.
And that requires, I think that requires a football strategy, a football identity, and a football ethos.
Mm-hmm.
Because Brugge play really, we thought we were holding them up on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Their football is exceptionally pleasant on the eye. They're really attractive to watch. They're very effective, and they're a team full of €6 million plus players with one or two stars who are above our record fee.
Yeah.
That is a machine that turns its assets over. So you bring the winger in, left winger or right winger, you develop them for 2 or 3 years, you sell them on, you replace them with the next one. We are so far away from that. It is fucking terrifying to think. And
Yeah.
with all the riches we have as a club and an elite manager in place,
Yeah.
it's mismanagement, guys. There is no other alternative view. It is incompetence and mismanagement.
But Monty, I
Terrifying.
think that's part of the wider frustration just now. Just what you've mentioned. You mentioned the Bruges or Brugge there, right? So the game we played them in last season's Champions League at Celtic Park. Now remember, we get a good start and everyone was looking forward to the game thinking, right, 3 points. That was most folk were saying 3 points. I'd done a lot of homework in Brugge, which is understandable. I think Desi had seen them play with 10 men in one of the games before we played them away to Milan. Was it
Yeah.
Milan or
Yeah.
Inter? Can't remember. They said they were terrific, right? So the first half at Celtic Park, they had our number. They totally
Yeah.
had our number, and probably were lucky it was only 1-0 at half time. In fact, they got a goal in the second half called off for offside. I think it was just a fraction offside. That'd have killed the
Yeah.
game. Irrespective, Maeda scored, we came back, and I thought we finished the game so well. But what I'm trying to say is, at the end of that 90 minutes, it was a one each game with two good teams. Two
Aye.
good teams, right? So we then get Bayern, which we've discussed already. And first leg, we give them a lot of respect, blah, blah, blah. It didn't matter. Second leg over there, we were outstanding. I did deserve to beat us, but the fact we took them so close to extra time over there was great praise to the club, to the manager, the players, and everything else. The point I'm trying to make is this. So from playing Brugge in a brilliant game that was one each fair result, to then getting Bayern a few months later in the knockout, to then fast forward 6 months, where your point, Brugge sell a bundle of players for 50, 60, 70 million, but they don't fanny about. They reinvest in 3 or 4 players at 6, 7, 8 million euros in preparation, not at the last minute, to prepare for them playing, because they had 2 qualifying rounds to play.
Mm-hmm.
So before
Yeah.
they played Rangers, they had to play, was it Salzburg?
Salzburg, yeah.
Salzburg,
Yes,
right?
who
Who earned the most? So they had all the players there in preparation for that. So they've got the well-oiled machine. Compare and contrast to us, who had a fantastic position, have actually not just went and paused, we've regressed in a few months with all that money. So if ever there's 2 clubs that symptomise what's right and what's wrong in terms of strategy, working in cohesion as a manager with recruitment stuff, director of football, it's Celtic and it's Brugge.
And that's a key point, Hector, because I think in that Brugge, I'll keep calling them Brugge now. In that Brugge example, the manager is the interchangeable position. They'll still play the same football by and large. He'll move on. He'll get a job with a big club because of the way that they're playing football. But that strategy will remain intact in the background. And we seem to hop around with no clue because we're spending the equivalent or trying to pick up players of the equivalent spend of like League Two, League One in England. There's nobody going for 3 million
10 players,
anymore.
10 players for
Champions
14 million. 10
Yeah,
players for 14 million.
I'll come to the squad in a second.
Fucking man.
But there was one significant buy at the late last night, which has been called the SPFL signing of the transfer window, and that was Aberdeen signing Jesper Carlson, Bologna, a guy who was worth €12 million 2 seasons ago. The guy's not fell off a cliff that much. How do we know there's players of that quality available even this for loans? I mean, why are we just looking at any? It's just seeing you think of the situation we are now in, even being linked with Patrick Bamford, etc. It's just mental.
Here, and if you want another one, it's kind of hot off the press. I think that guy Benson from Burnley, that seemingly we couldn't do a deal with, he's just signed for Swansea as well, literally in the last 20 minutes. Like, and we've 2 players. I was only half joking. 2 players who turned us down for a punt for a move that fell through, and that guy Fofana. And now it looks like our primary target, Dahlberg, it looks like Ajax aren't going to pay the money, or they won't. They can't agree. It looks like they're going to have to go back.
So can I ask you all a question then, right? We're probably every other Celtic fan. We've probably got 4 or 5 different ideas in our head as to why we're so bad as a club in terms of we don't plan ahead correctly. A question to you, and Des, you might have this on your list of things, so apologies if I'm jumping ahead a wee bit.
Right.
Why are we so bad with so much money?
Hold on, Jim. Did you just go all Jim White on us there?
No, he said to Brian Laudrup, why are you so good? I'm saying, why are we so fucking bad with so much money? See, if you're skint, everybody gets it. Everybody understands. See, if you've got the best partner with somewhere between 70 to 90 million pound cash sitting in the bank, questions are, why are we so shit? You know, it's almost as if it's, see if they put a Rangers fan in charge of recruitment this summer, I think they struggle to do a worse job than the guys at Celtic. So is there some sort of deliberate sabotage at play here? No, that's a conspiracy theory, but is it trying to force Rodgers out the door?
Can I have a go at that? I think a lot is because you've got businessmen, and I'm using the businessmen in the loosest possible term, businessmen that are making footballing decisions. They should have a director of football in there who's got responsibility for the budget and how that budget's spent, and the leeway to go that little bit higher in special circumstances and not have to go cut my hand back to the board. A football man in charge with the understanding what the football operation needs, rather than having businessmen get involved in that sort of thing. It should be completely separate, and that to me is the biggest problem.
I don't think you're too far wrong, Karen, but I also think, just to add to it, the art of doing deals needs a particular type of mentality. It needs a particular type of personality, a little bit of bravado, a little bit of brash, a little bit of poker, but ultimately it needs integrity and honesty. Because a deal will never happen if you're trying to shaft somebody else.
Yeah.
Like him or loathe him, Lowell could do deals. He has that Parmesan fucking schmaltzy methadone look about him. There's just something of the night about him, but he could do deals when he was the CEO. I think these 2 boys that I put into that role are completely out of their depth. They don't know how to do deals, or they're incapable of doing deals. And that's why we have rapidly regressed in 6 months. And I know they're relatively young in terms of that, but this isn't fucking rocket science. If you have a car to sell and you want $3,000 for it, it's pointless me turning up and offering you 800 quid. Then tell you I'll be back in a week's time, I'll offer you $1,000, and then we keep going. I just look like a fucking idiot. And that's what they've done. They have caused reputational damage to Celtic Football Club. I believe through incompetence and inability.
Right, I'll come back to that in a minute, because I think there's a few threads to be pulled on that, right? But we'll come back to that in a minute. But first of all, Hector, compare and contrast Adomida Saturday, Miovski Saturday, or Friday, Adomida Friday, even Miovski Friday. The way the 2 clubs handled those 2 players in 2 days. You know what I mean? Rangers suddenly decide they need a striker. He's actually played. I think he almost played the full game. I know he never scored on it, but they needed him. They got him. They brought him. He played. We had a guy going up and down the motorway
But listen, we rightfully and understandably poke fun at them and have done for quite some time, including this season, where on the field they've been, well, to much of our joy, they've been a disaster. And I don't think, and I'm going to come to that in a wee minute because I've got a wee theory here. I'm going to run past you, and I've not had a drink yet. So this is a sober theory, which is a dangerous one, right? So Desi, a wee prompt to back to my theory. Please take a wee note, right?
Yep.
And just mention Russell Martin and the Celtic board. There we go. There's a wee link for you, right? So I think the interesting thing is we slag and blah 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 blah, right? They get pumped with Brugge during the week. Wonderful to watch, right? But they've actually went out and got a striker who knows the Scottish game and who is actually, dare I say it, if we had signed him as one of the potential two strikers to bring in, I think most of our fans would have been relatively happy with a guy that had done really well at Aberdeen, played well against us, was young enough, had pace. Now, the fact
sorry, Hector, the Huns would have been striking himself if we'd have turned up with Miovski on Sunday.
Right. So, the thing is, I know he might be shit for them, mainly because they've got so far got a shit manager, and that's life. That doesn't mean he'd be shit with us. You know, it might be the opposite. You get far more, don't laugh, because it doesn't look that way this early in the season, but you get a lot more chances, a lot more stability in terms of the players that's there compared to the clusterfuck that's over there. But he's the type of player I thought that we'd have jumped in and signed. I actually thought it was an ideal moment. I think we're all thinking the same, to jump in and fucking take him away from them. Two reasons. One, we needed a striker, and two, it would even make them fucking feel worse. And instead, your point, no, nothing. In fact, let's make it worse for us. Let's get Ad Media fucking up and down the M6. No, waiting a little chef with a bacon toasty and a cup of tea. We storm jolly fucking phone from 25 years ago, right? Waiting for a call. It is embarrassing in many fronts, as you say.
Yeah, and then they've also went out and bought the guy for Everton. They've went out and bought the Canadian defender. I'm not saying these are the world's greatest players, but they, as Karen mentioned, they have identified football gaps that need filled, and they've filled them. Obviously, football's hindsight's a perfect science, not that we don't know how the players will be, but they've filled those gaps, and then only time will tell. We have created gaps, Monty. I mean, like, is it
Gaps.
just self-harm?
We've created gaps, and we've also created more problems for the manager and disillusioned players and the likes of Yang. It's almost like we just lost the plot for a couple of weeks. Like you know, I keep going back to the lack. Ron Rogers is smart. Like a few of the things he said are just a little bit out of tune for you to think and pick up on. I'm all for investment, but it has to be at the right time. We need to sit down and look at this afterwards as a club and decide where we're going. If it's just about maintaining things, then I'm not the manager for Celtic. Rogers is already signposting his way out of the building because he's telling you what the reality is. And I think, in comparison to what's going on across the city, as you say, Hector, he hasn't really, over the city, hasn't really proven himself as a manager. What they've done is they've went and got him as players. And that guy from Everton, seemingly, if you believe the bullshit, they spent 10 million on him. Like, what the fuck did they get 10 million from? Miovski was a no-brainer for us to just step in and do exactly that, give him a bloody nose. And he'd have came to us. You could have given him a bit more money. He was well within the parameters, if those parameters exist. And I just keep coming back to the same thing. We have people who are tasked with doing deals who don't know how to do them, and they just need removed. They just need to go.
Right. We're going to take a wee pivot to the left because we're all left-sided these days. We're going to take a wee pivot to the left, and then we're going to come back to your topic and the big question, right? So let's go into something positive just for a wee couple of minutes. Karen, happy Celtic lass. Karen, as far as I'm aware, the three teams that you love, East Kilbride, Celtic and Celtic Women, they're all top of the league. Is that correct? Are you officially Miss Lucky Bags?
That's correct, yep. Absolutely buzzing for it. Magic.
So again, we joked at the start about the whole Celtic Women last season, this kind of died on its arse, and again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it just kind of faded out with the European campaign and things just faded away in the league. 3 games in, played 3, won 3, 4, 14 against 1, goal difference 13 points, 9. Everything rosy in the garden, Karen? You happy?
Well, you can see there's certainly improvements. You can see the moods around the place is so much better. First of all, the away game at Hearts, the amount of support that turned up, the away game at Hearts was fantastic. It was certainly the biggest away support I've seen outside a Rangers game, but it was really good. Great atmosphere. The team, you could see it on, when you're that close to it, it's brilliant. Because last year it was all quiet, there was no communication. This year you can see a clear game plan. They're all talking to each other. They look as if they're enjoying the football, which is certainly not happening last year. And yet the squad is pretty threadbare at the moment because of a number of injuries and because we get rid of a whole load of players who seem to have, it seems at the moment, might have been a few bad apples after all, because the mood certainly seems a lot better. So maybe Elena's getting the best out of the players that really want to be there and not be destructive and want to focus on the football. So that's looking good. The wee bonus that's came out of it is that we've had to introduce some of our youngsters, a couple of 16-year-olds. Shout out to Dara Dawson, superb. Young left back, scored an absolute screamer last week against Hamilton. Came on again against Partick Thistle at the weekend. It was really good, putting in some superb crosses into the box. Really, really looking very exciting. A couple other youngsters as well. And we've got a couple of others, our goalkeeper's 19. She's had a good start to the season. So at least you're starting now to see finally a couple of players coming through from the academy. Hopefully that can still be sustained. We certainly need a few more signings, and of course this will come back to, I'm pretty sure Elena will be having the same conversations as Brendan,
He's been caught worse. He's been caught worse.
Certainly was last Tuesday.
That was a Freudian slip to when he'd left us, I used to call that. No, but the women's transfer window doesn't shut till the 17th, so we are still short on a couple of wingers, a striker, and maybe cover it right back.
Not a chance.
You feel it?
Oh, no.
You feel it?
More chance of Brenda. More chance of Brenda signing.
It wouldn't surprise me if wouldn't surprise me if Nicholson and McKay put a few bids in and realise actually we can't sign him. That's the women's deadline. It's not the men's because they fell asleep at the fucking wheel.
So Karen, sorry, Daddy, Karen,
hold on, Hector. Sorry, Rangers this weekend, Karen. Optimistic? Will you take a draw to title for the league?
This is a huge test for us. We haven't beat Rangers in over a year. They have lost quite a few players, but they've brought in a couple of really good players as well, and they've still got a really good strike force. So this is going to be a real bit. I know Hearts away was a good test for us, and we've been building up nicely the last couple of days. This is going to be a huge game for us. It's because a lot of last season was down to the mentality of the team. When it came to playing the top 4, the top 5 teams, we didn't have that mentality to go out and win. It's really important that we get a win, I think, this early in the season, so that it can just help us building that momentum. I wouldn't be too disheartened if it was a draw, but I would like to say we would get a draw as a minimum, but I'm really hopeful we can pull something out of the bag and actually do this.
Okay, good stuff. Hector, do you have something to say there?
I was going to ask you, Karen, so what do you think? You kind of touched upon there. I know we had a good conversation. Whenever the women games are on, and to be fair, most of the games are on the TV. Mm-hmm. Alba's been brilliant, and some of the games are on Sky as well, right? And I took a good interest now in a couple of years, but I felt last year when we spoke, this is somebody unlike you who attends virtually every game, right? I just see the TV, so you get to know, you've got a more intimate relationship. I think the relationship with the players and the fans is a lot better, because obviously it's tighter. You can talk to players at the end of the game, so you can see the TV. So players trying to make this. I felt last year the biggest burden for the Celtic Women's Team was actually in the Champions League, I think they just weren't prepared as a club for it. And to play against the likes of Chelsea and Real Madrid home and away, which I thought the performances, mainly defensively, but they were outstanding in terms of how they structured defensively. But the downside was the volume of games with a limited squad. I think they were blowing fumes just after the new year when they needed 3 or 4 players to get brought in with quality to strengthen. So they're not got Europe this year. So and they've lost a lot of players. What do you think? It's early days. What do you think the main change has been to bring a bit of positivity? You mentioned some of the players no longer there, and you mentioned possibly some cliques or some bad apples. What can you expand on that a wee bit?
Well, I mean, I don't want to go into this, because I don't want to get defamation of character put on me here. But you hear the rumours about there were certain wee cliques, and maybe their attitude to the football itself wasn't 100%, wasn't more focused on the team. It was more that some players maybe felt that they were more important than the team. Toys would get thrown out the palm if they weren't getting picked. But I would say that the biggest thing I can say is I know last year the Champions League we did play really well and we played as a team. But a lot of last season and a lot of the comments of the fans was when you were going to games, there was no clear structure. There was no variety in our play. This season, since it started, you can see when we're talking earlier on about the relationships between the men's team on the pitch. You can see those relationships really developing this early in the season, and it's giving you excitement because there is variety in their play, and it's been really good to go to the game and enjoy it and watching it. But last year, it was that they looked like a bunch of individuals last year. They look like a team this year. It's the best way I can put it.
Good. That's good to know. And you think, you mentioned about needing a bit more players coming in. Have you heard anything about any signings even this week going into the weekend game? Because I know they made a couple last week, and it was a couple of weeks before they brought in.
Yeah, there's a Blackburn Rovers player, Hannah Luke, who has been spotted up a few times in the last couple of weeks, although when she came onto the pitch at the end of the game on Sunday, she looked like she had a bit of a limp. But she looked, I think that she's supposed to be a defender as well, but can play a bit forward as well. So that one's the name that's been mentioned. No other names at the moment, but Elena herself has said that she's looking for somebody up top because that was Saoirse Noonan. She was injured at the weekend as well. So Amy Gallagher pushed up further up and did. I mean, Amy always does put me all right up top. I like her up there, but I prefer her as a number 10. But yeah, she's indicated she's looking for a striker and certainly another winger at least.
And so see with Celtic, no Celtic men's team no playing this weekend. Just for those anybody who's listening in, who's maybe looking to go to the game this weekend, what's the details? When and where is the kickoff?
New Douglas Park, and it's a 3:05 kickoff because they're doing that emergency alarm thing, so they've delayed the kickoff for 5 minutes.
That's Deji's wallet getting opened. That's what that emergency alarm is.
Absolutely. Now you can't pay at the gate. That's a pain in the neck at New Douglas Park, but I think it's maybe about between £8 and £10 for an adult, something like that. But you can go onto Celtic website and get a ticket dead easy. Come along because it's a different atmosphere. It's a different experience, and I fell in love with it. I absolutely love going to the women's game. So if you can, I know it's not a brilliant location, New Douglas Park, and it's not a brilliant ground either, to be fair, but I'm sure that every one of the women's team would just love to get a really good crowd and cheer them on Sunday.
Yep. Very best of luck. Very best of luck to Celtic women, who are at least bringing some brightness into a dull world at the moment. Fingers crossed. Right, before I forget, I have an apology to make. I did mean to say RIP to Pat Woods in the previous podcast, and I forgot, so my apologies. RIP to Pat Woods, one of the great historians. And sadly this week, another Excel, Jimmy Bowen, passed away. He played 7 times with Celtic, scored 1 goal. Jimmy Bowen, and I know, Hector, you and I growing up, he was one of those Scottish football stalwarts
Partick Thistle and St Mirren, Jimmy Bowman. I think
Oh,
he had,
look,
you know.
look, I was just looking at his Wikipedia. There's a great photo where he's at Toronto Blizzards and he's meeting Ella Fitzgerald in the 70s. I mean, that's fantastic, isn't it? But he also played with Hong Kong Rangers, Arbroath, Sheffield United. So R.I.P. Jimmy Bowman.
He just looked like a proper 70s striker.
Him and Drew
He would
Jarvie.
just kick you.
Him and Drew Jarvie were your Scottish footballers. You know what I mean?
Was it the football cares we used to get with the crap chewing gum? You always had doublers, they Drew Jarvie, didn't you? The baldy Aberdeen striker. That's right.
Don't come over. Yes. Probably before your time, Karen and Monty.
No, I can remember Jimmy Bone. I can remember the shaggy hairdo at one point. Yep.
There's Monty's replicating again for the modern crowd.
Yes, indeed.
Right, okay, right. So R.I.P. Jimmy Bone, Pat. So okay, right. So before I was going to come to Monty, so apologies, Monty, but this in case Hector's theory overlaps or means we're going back in circles. We'll go to Hector now. Hector, your theory, because we're getting into the realms of the board, and I want to centre on the board now. So what's your theory? What's happening in the Celtic board?
So here's one of the theories, right? Now we're all been kicking about in our heads, no doubt, quite a lot. Not just more so the last week, but certainly over the last few weeks. Now we've always spoke, many of us here, about the Celtic board's lack of ambition in terms of really pushing on as a progressive club on and off the field, right? And one of the things mooted is the club are just happy to stay a step ahead of Rangers, right? Just keep ahead of them. That's more than enough to win the league, keep the fans happy, keeps the club happy, keeps the money looking good, gets the bonuses, blah, 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 blah. And it got me thinking, and this just came to mind last night, was Rangers' disastrous start to this season, right? 4 league games, 4 draws. Currently, is it 7th in the league? 6 points behind us. Ragdolled in Belgium 9-1 over the 2 legs by Bruges or Brugge. So here's my is it a conspiracy or maybe something? I'm going to ask you guys then. Is it possible the Celtic board, our 2 incredible executives who run the day-to-day operations and a mustachioed chap in the background, have looked at how inept and how shite and how bad Martin is, how much their fans want him chased, that they've suddenly went, actually, we don't need to spend too much to win the league. I'm not talking about Europe here, but staying one step ahead of them. If they perhaps went, what's the need to spend 25, 30 million? We'll beat them no matter what to stay ahead. This is what we need to spend. Why bother? Is that a possibility? Is that something that they would even consider? Thoughts?
So that's a very good question, right? So the question is, so I'm keeping that in mind, Monty. I'll come to you now, right? Because one of my questions was going to be, how much is too much? We are leaving this window 20 million in profit. So that is basically the money you missed for the Champions League. So if that was an issue, could that, and again, please feel free to consider that, could that have been an issue in respect to this week's budget, the fact that we weren't in the Champions League, so you have to find that money from somewhere. We have £20 million profit leaving this window. Thinking of Hector's question there, Monty. I have questions like Manny's decline, brackets, exit plan, question mark. Is there a purpose to this board? If there is, what do you personally think the purpose is? Because I have my ideas, Hector's ideas, and I've got a feel Arno have some ideas. What's your personal? I'd like to get everybody's perspective on what they think. How did this happen?
I think if you go back to O'Neill, and we have a very similar spend profile all the way through all our managers. Big splurge, medium splurge, fuck all, maybe lose a league, big splurge, medium splurge, fuck all. What I think we're seeing is just the continuity of that, which would tie into the asset management strategy that I talked about. You're going to drop 20 or 30 million down over the course of 2 years, but you want to make 50 or 60 back. The club states that they don't budget for Champions League football, and that's the correct thing to do because you're not guaranteed it. But the club also take a counterproductive position, which is to wait to see if we get into the Champions League before we spend money, and that's where the flaw is. So I think our ambition is purely domestic as a board and as a PLC. That's the direction to the football club. You can argue that that's realistic, or you can argue that it's just completely out of sync with what most fans want. And bear in mind, Celtic is entertainment. So do you want to just sit and have another boring episode of fucking Coronation Street? Or do you want to watch the thriller at the end of EastEnders? Terrible analogy, but you get my point. In respect to Hector's, it's not just a theory. Actually, when you lay out the evidence, Hector, you could be onto something. We did it when Ronnie Dyla was here. We did it when the Huns went bust and Rangers not version 2 started. We significantly pulled back our spending. And it's almost like we're symbiotic with them still, even though most of our support base has moved on past them. That we want to be attached to them. And I understand why strategically Scottish football, this notion of Scottish football needs a strong Rangers. No, it doesn't. Scottish football just needs to be better. But Celtic, in its old way of thinking, needs a strong Rangers in order to have a competitor. So you could be right, but would it have affected our plans for this window? No, I think that would be reckless, Hector. I don't think they would have done that. I don't think they would have said, they're shite, pull it all back.
No, I'm saying deliberately lowballing. Deliberately low, so they know the offers won't be accepted.
No, you're giving them too much credit. I genuinely believe you're giving them too much credit. I think genuinely, and I can't say it, that's probably the 10th time I've said it now. The two boys that are being tasked with making deals are out of their depth. They don't know how to make deals. They're useless. They're 850 grand and 500 grand a year useless. You just need to get rid of them. If you want to be creative and do deals.
Picking up on something you said earlier, Monty, right? You're saying these two guys can't make deals. Are these not the same two guys who done the deals last year for Ida, Trusty and Engels? I don't know. I don't remember anybody else coming in to join the executive board to take their place last year.
The level of expenditure required for those three would have required pre-board approval for signature.
So you think these guys are operating on their own? Listen, so this is starting to touch, to bring Karen up to speed. This is starting to touch on your WhatsApp chat last night, whereas I was at it. So we've got a few ideas, and my big question was, I thought all Celtic fans thought that Dermot, he was the guy that was totally in control. He was the guy that brought Rodgers to Celtic, brought Rodgers back to Celtic, courted him in Mallorca, brought him back, brought him over, and you imagine they had a rock solid relationship. Brendan wants a player, go and get a player. That seemed to be the case last year, and then somehow this year it's all went tits up.
But it wasn't the case in the first year. Remember how frustrated he was in year one? Mm-hmm. Remember he was really doing his nut because he couldn't get players in the door.
But that was Matt Wall signings, wasn't it?
That was all, yeah. You know, Larberbeek and Naraki and all that.
And they didn't want to rock the boat because he just came out and realised, listen, he knew the lie of the land. A lot of fans fucking didn't want him back. As we spoke about this in the podcast, mind, and he was so low key, Rodgers, in the first few months. I'm not rocking the boat. I'll accept what I'm given. But him being low key is the shite version of him. But the point, Monty, right? And I think so. Daisy, your question there was about the three players brought in. But let's add to that. They were brought in very late in the day, and if I remember rightly so, we went to play St Mirren, right? And Nicholson and Law outside the stadium were pulled up with supporters, a group of supporters giving them dogs abuse. And lo and behold, fucking spend money, you miserable cunts. I'm sure it was worse to that effect.
There he is.
I'm just repeating what I heard was said at the time. And Nicholson stood behind Law. Nicholson actually went behind Law. And Law, to be fair, I'm glad I'm saying this, Law actually is the one that spoke to supporters and said, look, and then within 2 days, the signings start coming in. There's got to be something.
This to be right here. Sorry, Monty, this to be right here. But you know why Nicholson went behind Lawwell? Because Nicholson's as hard as nails, and he would have battered the guy. So he was protecting those Celtic fans. That's the sort of
No, he hadn't slept. He hadn't slept in 96 hours because he was working 24 hours a day in the transfer window. That's why he just needed a wee quick nap. So he just leaned on Peter's broad, tan
So is
shoulder.
that how we get up to spend then, right? Now, I'm not encouraging people to actually commit physical violence, but is the way to get up to spend is actually to see them outside the ground and threaten them. Could you say just that? Not overly threaten them. Say, how about spending some of your money, you bunch of miserable cunts? Words to that effect. Do you think that's the key to success?
Perfect tying into one of my next questions, right? But we'll just wrap it all up together. Bring it to Karen then. So what can we do? What can fans do? Are we just having to like it and lump it? Is that it?
Customers, Paul. What can customers do? Sorry, Karen.
So not even price customers, base customers. Sorry, Karen. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean that's it. But it's going to need something along the Celts for Change thing that happened with the previous board. I sort of intimated that we're as big a shambles as the previous board was last night for different reasons. But how do we get this to come together? Is it through the Celtic Trust? Is it somebody setting up something? Or is it just individual fans acting as one and saying, right, okay, I'm coming out the home cup ticket scheme. I'm not going to go for the Europa Cup package. And when they start seeing empty seats, then they might start thinking about it. But again, that's acting as individuals, and you're never going to have that certainty because you'll always have guys that will still want to go to the game. And even back in the day, when it was Celts for Change, I'm going to admit I was one of the 8,000 that was in the grounds that night.
Scab.
I was that one, but I did turn my back on the boards, when they came in to show my disappointment.
Too late.
I know, but yeah. How do we get that organised now? Because always think as well on Twitter, on sort of podcasts, we're a certain type of Celtic fan that are. I'm not saying that all Celtic fans aren't passionate, but some Celtic fans don't really mind what the board are doing, let's be honest. They're quite happy just to pay their season ticket and go to the games, and you see it, the guy with the tweet earlier on, about how magnificent the board are. So there is an element, and you don't really know how big an element are quite happy with what the board are doing, whereas we are in a sort of this vacuum of Twitter and all the rest of it, where we're all saying the same thing. So you get carried away and thinks everybody's the same. So you don't really know until maybe somebody starts putting something together.
So Desi, Monty, can I just come in to Karen? So obviously we remember the whole board and that was our generation and no going. But here's what I think, and you touched on it at the end there. Here's what I think the massive difference is, right? We had the old stadium that was really dilapidated, right? Yeah. And the team was finishing, was it 5th, 4th, 5th, going nowhere. Yeah. Hadn't won for years. So here's the challenge. We've won 13 of the last 14 leagues. Yeah. We've currently won 4 in a row. We're currently sitting top of the league, 10 points out of 12, and 6 points ahead of Rangers. Now, I think the board have got no ambition for Celtic. They're not fit for purpose. But here's why a lot of fans are going to go, wait a fucking minute. Yeah. I want to keep going. My team's winning the league. Why would I want to boycott? This is my family, my friends. We go, I've got my season ticket, winning leagues, winning trophies. I'm trying to just see it from your point. The other angle, I got the anger because we were young at the time. We were raw militants, young Desi and I at the time, fucking boycotting Citizen Smith and all that sort of stuff. But we did it and it was the right thing to do. Yeah. But now I get, you're going to fucking boycott. We're going for 5 in a fucking row. It's a different dynamic, isn't it?
It's you two touched on. I'll let Monty come in. You two touched on it, but you've also got to dry your fucking eyes, mate. Brigade, you're going. We've won 13 out of 14 titles. We've got 100 million in the bank. We're top of the league. We've just signed 10 players. What are you fucking moaning about? Do you remember the bad old days? No, that's the idea. As I keep saying, past performance is not representative of future fucking results. You know what I mean? So, Monty, you are our financial business guru here. Are we fucked? Because I think we're fucked numbers-wise, voting-wise, etc. Could we get a 5% voting share to cause enough EGM disruption, or is Dermot not going to lose any sleep in the next 6 months?
He'll definitely not lose any sleep in the next 6 months. I think I can guarantee you that. I think he does behave like a custodian. Like he genuinely is, in his own mind, a custodian of the club. You know, he'll step in whenever he's needed, but the notion of everything going past his desk is just bonkers. And we really need to dispel that. In terms of the change that's needed, it is just around, and I went on a rant, I think, on the last podcast around Celtic reflecting my values and wanting to feel attached to a club that shares the same sense of the world as me, you know, give or take. There'll be many things that won't. My point in it is my ambition for Celtic Football Club is actually underpinned by something they say, but they don't believe. That the club, it's in one of the mission statements or one of those, is to strive for excellence in Scottish football and European football. And we've definitely got the first bit right, but we do fuck all to go after the second bit, Desert. And how you do that, firstly, is you have to decide that you really want to do that as a club. And then you put in place the appropriate people who will actually make that happen. And we don't think like that as a club. You know, I doubt very much they have a strategy for Europe, if I'm really honest. Europe is a
potential. Is there a potential curveball question? Is there a potential for outside party to perhaps buy Desmond's share in the next 6 months?
Yeah.
Right. If they buy his shares, in effect, they're taking control, right? In effect,
Yeah.
he's 31%. But so is that something that maybe we've not spoke about this? Is that something that maybe could be on the table that's being discussed in the background for maybe a wee period of time?
But this is the thing, be very, very careful with your wish for.
Yeah.
What's happened across the city with Marat and that other guy, Kavanagh, over in the States, they've just took those books private, be under no illusion that the money that they've just splurged, they want a return on, and they want a return of multiples. But they'll sit tight for 4 or 5 years until they get it right. But after that, that's just a cash cow that they'll milk. You look at what the Glazers did to United, you look at any of these foreign investments, where Celtic are ironically protected is where the fuck are you going to grow it other than Europe? So the beauty of it is, if we are to be procured by someone or acquired by a group, the only place that you can grow your revenues aligns with our ambition, our collective ambition in this podcast. And you build an organisation and you build a team for European football. But are you ever going to win a European trophy? If we're spending League Two money on players at the minute, because that's what our revenues dictate we can, that's the conundrum, Hector. And I don't think, and we're money bastards. We're no good at being top dog. We never have been. We need to be a rebel. We need to have a fight. But do I think it can happen? It's a long shot, Hector. Like, how are you getting your return? How are you getting your return for 100 million?
Two factors in that, I think, right? So Celtic are currently market capitalisation roughly 200 million, right? So you're maybe looking at $500 million to buy them to actually make Dermot interested. They always say he's just going to hand it on to his son, etc., etc. Monty's just talking there. We had a conversation during the week about Brugge, our friends over Brugge, and I highlighted the fact that Brugge are a private company.
Private
right?
company. Yeah.
So the difference is, and I've just wrote here, Europe versus UK. Football clubs in Europe, private companies, interested in the clubs, interested in the fans. They're no concentrating purely on profit stroke shareholders. UK, totally different perspective.
Yep.
Their interest is bottom line. What are we getting out of this? How can we have a leverage buyout so you actually have to pay for us to take over your club? That idea, and unless we can get a European approach, which will not happen, sadly, then we're fucked, I think, for that perspective.
We're stuck, Desi. I think we're stuck in this cycle, and the irony is, as you point out, top of the league, 13 out of 14, going for 5 in a row, buckled loads of trophies, but we had a teaser last year for what it could be with just a bit more investment. And I think that's the bit that hurts us most. I'm not asking, none of us are asking them to spend 70 million and go bonkers. No one's asking them to
So
put their club
Karen,
at risk.
see for your benefit,
Mhm.
for your benefit, I'm going to throw one in, right? And
Right.
this is wishful thinking rather than anything else, right?
You want to move to East Kilbride?
With the chat with the guys, it's always fucking winter there, right? The chat with the guys is
Fucking
the
pitch
chat
black
with
and
the
things up.
aye, because you're fucking Rutherglen, you're from Rutherglen either, right? The other thing is, right? I put out there about potential somebody taking over from Desmond, and totally get your point. Of course, Monty, get your point, and you as well, Desi. However, looking at America, right? There's one guy involved in US sports. There's more than one. Believe it or not, there's quite a few of them who run their organisations fantastically well, and it's not about stealing profit out the kind of organisation, but building something special. There's a guy called Jeffrey Lurie just now, who for many years has owned the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mhm.
He's a Boston man, Jeffrey Lurie. He took me over years ago, and what he does is he appoints the best people to run the club, which sounds like a crazy idea, doesn't it? You'll go and try and get the best
Never
chief
catch on.
executive. You'll go and try and get the best chief executive, a guy called Howie Roseman, who's beyond doubt #1 in the States. Makes him one of the highest paid people you can get, empowers the guy, gets the best data analysts, gets the best coaches, so that everything round about the club structure, they won't win every year. They'll have off years, but more times than not, they'll progress and push on and they'll challenge to be the best, in his word, the best of what they possibly can be. I want Jeffrey Lurie to buy out Dermot Desmond, a good Boston man. There we
Right.
go.
Okay, and that's good. But what happens if somebody from Saudi comes along? You know, how do you feel about that? Are you quite happy to, you know, bite your tongue about what goes on over there, just for them to come and have a well-managed club?
Depends who it is, like anything else, right? But don't tell me for a second that Dermot Desmond wouldn't sell to somebody for Saudi who offered them £500
He would,
million, right?
100%. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it'd bother him that much because he's never ever mentioned he would like to sell Celtic, or he's never put a deadline on that. He'll move on. As I say, I think he's up 200 million. They'd have to offer $500 million, I'd say.
No, you're nuts. We did the calculation last year. Remember, I actually ran it through that guy's football. Seemingly, it's the model that they use.
Maguire, was it?
Right, Celtic, you buy Celtic for less than 200 million.
No, but right, that's what I'm saying to make it work. I honestly don't think you would entice Dermot Desmond to sell for less than double what the club's currently worth.
No, but no, it doesn't.
I don't think he's in it.
But it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. It's not that it's sell to the highest bidder and Desmond lets his shares go. The shares are valued at the minute based on market, and you put a premium on it based on the club's, essentially the club's multiples of EBITDA plus the value of its assets. It's a really boring thing, but when you run the numbers, Celtic are about 100. I think it was 190 something million.
Yeah.
And that's so anything above that, well done, Dermot. But the key is he said two things. No one has ever made him an offer for his shares, to your point, Hector. And the other side of it is he believes that he's a custodian. And Karen, your point's well made. It's better, sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for. But if you're a Man City fan, do you give a fuck that the money that started your dynasty was from really dodgy, crooked fucking Thai business people? If you're a Newcastle United fan right now, do you give a fuck that your money's coming from Saudi? Football doesn't have the guiding morals that sometimes we would like it to have, in my opinion. It's a business at the end of the day.
But I think, that a lot, what Celtic built on, this is it's just a part of our DNA, that, we're there for the poor, we're there for the less fortunate, we're there for integration, all of these things. And I think
But are we really, Callum? Sorry to cut across you. Are we really now as a PLC? Are we really that?
And that's what I was coming on to. That's the fan base is like, but our current board aren't like that. So are we going to? Is it got to the level now where people would just accept that it doesn't matter who's going to be in charges anymore? There's always going to be that difference between the board and the culture of the support.
That I think that the private ownership piece, as Desi pointed out, is probably the only way, Karen, that we could ever fix the gap that's there. As in, it would go into private ownership in a consortium of people who genuinely believe in the ethos of Celtic. And you look at the is it Athletic Bilbao, the Basque club? It never lost its identity in the way that Barcelona did. That is a possibility, Karen, but it's going to need a group of boys with deep pockets who aren't worried about a return on their investment, but really care about the future of the club.
So again, that was also part of my thinking behind the Dermot. It would take a lot for Dermot. Let's never forget, Dermot appointed John Reid to the board purely to get home office contacts. He appointed Lord Parkhead to the board purely to get cabinet access. He used to have breakfast. He used to be on the private eye almost every month, having a £50,000 breakfast with David Cameron. Sell it open a lot of doors for Dermot Desmond, which are no reflected in the Celtic share price or his 200 grand extra dividend payment he gets every year. That's my outlook on that. Right. So, Karen, I'm going to give you an option. We're running short of time. I've got two points left. Do you want point 1 or point 2 to choose?
Point 1.
Okay, point 1. Do you feel at this point in time Neil Doncaster is scared that Sky Sports will not get 4 Celtic Rangers games this season?
100%.
100%. Seeing I saw they were 7th in the league the other day, it did make me laugh just to hold on a minute. Where's that contract?
But that's the embarrassment for me about Sunday, how we could not create any decent chances against that defence. That defence has been having a circus going through it every week by every other team in the league. And Brugge proved it the other night. And we were absolutely pitiful on Sunday. So, teams are throwing the gauntlet down to them and charging them.
Martin completely changed his tactics. And no, hold on. But he just launched the ball diagonally, right? The amount of times they played it for the keeper to centre backs, you could count in probably 2 fingers the whole game.
Yeah.
They didn't have one shot and goal. We were dreadful, but he wasn't want to play game of football.
Touching on that, Karen, one of the weirdest things I thought this week has been there's been a lot of showing the 3-0 game for a while back, and it's the amount of space Celtic seem to have on the park, whereas at the moment we don't seem to have any space on the park against anybody. So I don't know if it's pure movement or the teams are pressing us or a combination of all of those. But that way, you watch these games and you go, how big is that park? Because we seem to have 10 yards with a player to run into.
Movement, sharpness, and confidence.
I was making a point in our chat about that, right? Obviously, we watch the TV and, you're limited by the space to show you in the TV, right? So, for example, Calmac gets the ball, you invariably maybe see 15, 20 metres in front of him, maybe 10, 15 behind him. But we're at the game and you get the whole pitch. And what was obvious from the game we played against St Mirren and the game in the European game, the movement in the front three, it's just, there's lack of movement, cohesion in the front three. There's lack of options just now.
And that's why Martin changing his tactics was fine, but we still should have had a better performance on the day to deal with that.
Or change their tactics.
No movement.
I do agree with you. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, right, Hector, last question to you, and this is going to give out to everyone. Last question. We're in international break now. Kieran Tierney's away, God only knows why. Will Brendan Rodgers still be the manager by the end of international break?
He won't resign, so they'll have to sack him. And he won't resign because he left the last time, we all know, he was doing Leicester, I think, for 3 months, and he says he wants to go back to Celtic because they didn't realise, because his ego's that fucking big. Yeah, his ego's that fucking...
Leicester's quite close to Stoke, where Ralph lives.
That fucking stalker with his white van with no plates on it. And but he realised when he came back, and he was, for the very first moment at Celtic Park, the first time was at 12,000, second time 12 people came to see him arriving, and he went, I'll see my 3 years out. So unless they sack him, right, he will see out his third year because he wants to walk away. He's came back. He's made up with the supporters to a degree. So no, he'll have to get sacked. He won't walk of his own accord.
Okay, Monty, same question to you with the added information of a lot of fans, I'd say 99% of the fans now would understand if he did. Do you think he will? Not even walk away. Do you think he will still be manager at the end of this international window?
Yeah, I do. Unless there's a revelation. Unless he just lets it all out of the bag. And there's no press conferences slated until, I think, the 12th of September anyway. So unless he lets it out of the bag in his next press conference, yes. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. Until he's emptied. That's his own words. Unless I get emptied.
Okay, Karen, what about you?
I agree. There's no way he's walking. Absolutely no way. Whether they'll sack him or not, I don't think they have the guts to do anything like that. They'll just let him hang himself out, make it a disaster of a last season for them as much as they can.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So are we just going to stumble to January, do you think, and then have another City window in January?
Yep. They'll not give him any more money because he's made it pretty clear, that he's not going to sign. I don't think anybody seriously thinks he's going to sign a new contract given what's happened. So they'll just stumble on. They'll not give him any more money because they want to give it to the next manager.
Yeah. The only caveat.
Daisy, sorry, Mon, you go first.
I was going to say the only caveat that I would say to that, Karen, is if it was some sort of power play and dynamic going on, and he wins the argument, and they say, right then, you take the budget every year, you do with it what you want. It's yours. We fucked this up. We don't know how to run it. You build it. Remember, he talks about himself being a builder. I think if they did that, maybe. But sometimes it tells me it's gone too far this time. I think they've really hung him out to dry. They've really done him bad.
I was going to say, here's the just to turn its head slightly. Here's the hope. Right? The two wingers were brought in the last week. Alec Wishy, and let's call him Sebastian. I'm not calling him fucking Seb, right? Sebastian, right? If they two, now there's international break, which can work to their advantage, so that the lot of the players still there, especially they two working with the squad and getting integrated with the players that are here. If they hit the ground running with the pace and their dynamic, and there's what we're missing is that movement, creativity up front. If they become good players, that totally galvanises your team. So that's the hope that happens over the next few weeks.
But you still don't have a fucking striker to put them away.
Maeda's playing striker, and Maeda's going to have to hold on. He's going to have to, understandably so, because we're all fickle, right? Maeda carried us for the last part of the last season for January onwards, right? And he was outstanding as a number 9. Right now, I defy anybody to play number 9 in our team right now and look at how bad it would be. He has mid-star sitters. I think that's just a confidence thing. It'll come and go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, last question, last sub question of that. Right, well, let's wrap up. Will a head roll before the end of international break?
Unless it's gross misconduct from one of the executives, no. I would certainly be, from a board perspective, demanding accountability at the next sort of board meeting. And at that board meeting, based on all of the evidence that I have, there's no hiding. Well, we spent 14.5 minutes. No, you didn't. You really fucked this. I would be demanding that there's action then, Desi. So before the end of the window, no. You might see a few chairs change, but by the time January comes around, it's always a good time to get rid of them around September, October. Get them with 3 months in the garden.
I think Desi's got a different angle he's coming for here, Monty. I don't think he's talking about our chief exec or head of finance or that level. I think he's talking about a Mr. Paul Tisdale perhaps as being the sacrificial lamb.
Well, I've been calling him Patsy for the last 3 days. I mean, he's the easiest guy to serve up.
He's the easiest one, isn't he? He really is.
He's the easiest one, but actually, when you look at what his job description is, this has nothing to do with him.
Exactly.
By the way, Desi, I meant to say to you, sorry, but just on Tisdale, because so very, very rarely we get a smidgen noon again, right? We don't go chasing fucking info and all that, but being old fuckers, you get to know one or two people and get a wee bit. Tisdale, Rogers, and the recruitment team provided the list of players to the executive back in May for this season.
Yes.
Right? And it wasn't just one player for each position. That's old news. As everyone knows, there's usually a minimum of 3, and in most cases 5 players for each position. Prioritise 1 to 5. And there was only 2 players over that overall list being brought in. One was last week, was Balakwishy, months later than they'd hoped to, and Nygren, and who wasn't the first choice. So just think about that for a second. So they done their job. They provided all that. You're talking in excess of 20 players, and of the 22, there's been 2 brought in from that list of 20 players.
I have a friend who works in finance, Monty, I think knows him, and he told me of a famous encounter he had walking into a major investment bank after his holidays, and all of the directors were standing around the table, and he joked, "Oh my, who the fuck's getting sacked today?" And they all looked at him and they went, for fuck's sake. And that was him, gardening leave. Right, final question to Karen. Bring it all back home where we started this when we came on, maybe even before there. Karen, if you're voting at the AGM this year, is there any maybe non-executive directors that you'd maybe like to see being removed from the board?
Brian Wilson.
A dagger through Hector's heart.
Always good to end on a positive note, although Hector's friend may be disappointed to hear that.
Sorry.
Along with Chris McKay. Mama Madrid, mate.
Apologies, Hector. Right, that's good. Okay. We almost joked about trying to have a paradise positive pod tonight, but obviously we had to cover these shitty times. But as Monty has always often said, interesting times. So it's always nice to have something to pick up before and look at Twitter rather than the usual rampant shite. So we'll be interested to see what happens over the next month or so. Hopefully it'll be positive somehow. Thank you very much, guys. It's just left for me to say thank you as always to everyone for listening, subscribing, liking. Please add your comments wherever possible. It's always good to read your feedback. Always welcomed. We'll leave you tonight with the usual word from our sponsors, then an appropriate song for this last week. But it's just left for me to say thank you, first of all, to Monty. Monty, what is the C standing for again tonight?
I think just confused, Desi. There's too many expletives that start with C. Confused.
Nice. Thank you very much, Monty.
Thanks, Desi. Thanks, guys.
And to a welcome back to our sweaty man in the suburbs. Thank you. God bless the board, Hector Bandido.
Jesus suffering fuck.
And last but not least, thanks to the person who, by supporting the Celtic girls team every other week, is at least bringing some sunshine into our lives. Thank you very much, Karen. Happy Celtic Lass. Please follow Karen on Twitter where you can, folks. That's where you'll find her. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me along, guys.
Anytime. Always your pleasure. All right, folks, my name is Desmond. Thanks for listening. Good night.
Big Tams of the Gallowgate are proud to sponsor the eTims podcast for season 25-26. Do you love haggling for a bargain? Are you the sort of person who enjoys looking in the middle aisles of Lidl and Aldi hoping to find something obscure and cheap? If so, then get yourself down to Big Tams in the Gallowgate, where we have some one-legged broken down football players open to offers. Big Tams. We have been laughing at Celtic board negotiation tactics since 1888.
Received the letter just the other day. Don't seem to wanna know you no more. Laid it down, giving you the score. Within the first 2 lines, it's like to be read. You're not to come see us no more. Keep away from our door. Don't come round here no more. What on earth did you do that for? Our aunt, she don't wanna know. She says, what will the neighbours think? They'll think we don't. That's what they'll think. We don't, but I will, 'cause I know they think I don't. Our uncle, he don't wanna know. He says we are disgrace to the human race. He says, how can you show your face when you're a disgrace to the human race? embarrassment. Yes, an embarrassment, a living endorsement. The intention that you have booked was an intention that was overlooked.